Do you feel like you absolutely should sit in that chair at the moment, or is there still a little bit of imposter syndrome?
Being super shy, what they basically told me every day is that you're very stupid. That kid's so stupid, he'll never get a job. And so my esteem was so low. It was so painful. I used to use a compass and push it into the nerves of my teeth, which would create so much pain, it would numb it. I went into foster care. I'm basically uneducated, didn't read or anything, but I lost.
Welcome to Leaders in Disguise, where we uncover the realities of leadership and mental health. I'm your host, Gary Parsons, and today's guest is a truly inspiring leader. Hutton Henry's journey from a tough beginning in foster care to a career leading in the tech industry and supporting CEOs is nothing short of remarkable. He's a tech founder with a unique perspective of resilience and adaptability, grounded in his own challenges and breakthroughs. Today, Hutton shares insights into overcoming hardship, building businesses, and staying true to oneself in the face of leadership pressures. So let's jump into it. Hello, Hutton. Thank you very much for coming on Leaders in Disguise. How are you doing?
I'm really well, Gary. Thank you for having me. I'm really good.
I'm so pleased that we finally sat down. This has been a conversation that we've had many months ago to get you on the show, get you talking. How does it feel to finally be here?
It's great to be face to face.
That's the nicest compliment I've ever had on the podcast. So we'll save that one and we'll put that out to the world. So
definitely.
Thank you very much. No, it's great to have you here, and thanks for coming in our temporary studio, our London debut.
Yeah,
which is great to see a different world.
Yeah,
and certainly I feel like you're in a complete. I'm out of my comfort zone.
Okay.
And so are you. So I think we're on an equal plane
that'd
here. So it's great to have you. Looking very dapper for our people that are watching on YouTube and on the phone. So great to see you've made an effort.
Yeah, well, for you, Gary, that's it. So.
I'm sure you look as great as you do every time.
No,
so.
see me tomorrow, you'll see.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I'll hold you to that. I'm genuinely excited to dive into the story that is already inspired me in so many ways. You've been through so much. There's the bits that we talk about running a tech business, mentoring and supporting at those really crucial times of leaders. I want to ask you a question to start us off.
Yeah.
What's one thing that's really surprised you in the journey that you've gone on to be the leader that you are, that has shaped that journey so far for you?
I think, good question. I would say actually sitting comfortably in the leadership chair. So something that's really odd when you first take on the job is you may not even connect to it. And if you can't visualize yourself in it, there's no way you can lead. So it's kind of surprising that I got there eventually. And that's great because it's really good for my family, for my team, for my customers. It's also good for my happiness as well, So yeah, that's a big surprise and a good one actually.
And you should be there very much so by reading what you've done and the experience that you've gained before that. Do you feel like you absolutely should sit in that chair at the moment, or is there still a little bit of imposter syndrome? It feels like a phrase I use every episode.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, isn't it? That term, is quite a modern term, but it's always been around us. I think you can always learn. So you're not always fully sat in that chair. I'm in this position today. I listen to, CEOs of big companies and think, well, I'm not in their chair. You listen to their problems or challenges. So I think you shouldn't even be fully seated and too comfortable, because you'll stop learning, and learning is a really important part on the behalf of everyone else as well. So.
And that complacency or that sense of arrogance going, I belong here and I need to be here and it's rightful my place. It's not the way to do it. Like you say, every day is a school day. We're always learning.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you absolutely, like I say, you do belong in the seat that you talk about there, that metaphorical seat. But every day you must be learning and adapting the world of business, the M&A world, the mergers and acquisitions. I have to make sure I don't use acronyms everywhere.
Yeah, sure.
Mergers and acquisitions world that you are talking to business leaders about.
Yeah.
must feel like it's changing every day at the moment. Where on
It's-
earth do you get the emotional energy to support those business leaders?
I think, to be honest, it's a very exciting place, and it always has been since I was first exposed to it. So once you feel it, and everyone we work with, I think you won't go back. It's a very fast pace, and M&A is really about people. If you're buying a company, you're buying people, right? You're not buying a P&L, you're not buying a spreadsheet. And so I think that we sit in this sort of chair. We're sitting in this chair watching dream makers. Whoever's buying, whoever's selling, and for most people, it's the first time they're going through it. For us, we look at 7 companies a month, so you see some things that are common, but there are things that are so specific to that leader or the leadership team. And that's why I love this job, because, fine, there is a very cerebral part to this job, and there's parts about finding out about the company, but, there are very unique things you'll never see. Then no two are the same.
Having been through that process myself,
Okay, yeah.
it's a real emotional journey for the
Yeah.
leaders to go on, and it's taught me a lot about trying to stay resilient and those knocks that you get along the way. I remember there was one company that we were going to purchase, and in fact there's been 2 that we were going to purchase where we said, is this the right decision for us? Surprise, surprise, we didn't buy those companies.
Sure.
And even the ones that I have done,
Yeah.
there was moments where we did say, is this right for us?
Yeah.
There's some huge risk in here. There always is.
Yeah.
What's that one tip that you can give to people that are watching, that are listening, that are on that journey of selling their businesses? Let's look at it from that side.
From their side, yeah.
Or maybe even buying them, perhaps. How can they stay strong and keep going? Because I've been there and I burnt myself out during that process.
Yeah.
How can other people avoid that?
I think I think having a reality that you're going to be doing 2 very big jobs at once, I think there's no expectation, you're going in, it's very exciting, and suddenly you realize selling a company is probably more work than running your company, and there is so much work to be done. And I think you have to have a good team around you and good communication and candor. So my number one thing would always be about being very honest around the people around you, and people like us will find the known knowns. That's my job, right? I need to find that. Just throw them out there, because if you keep things within, that just becomes the tension and the stress. And we see the founders, go from being quite excited at the beginning and mentally exhausted, and they get diligence fatigue, all the things I can see there,
Those
Gary.
days, yeah, absolutely.
And, so it's so in one way it's a very fast process. Setting self expectations is really important. Cutting it down into manageable goals. And really, if you look at the process, I'm sure you saw this, everything's thrown at you, and it's almost a litmus test to see how the business sort of maintains while you're doing that. So as long as you realise it's a bit like the Krypton factor, you'll be okay.
There's a diamond at the end somewhere
Yeah,
in the way.
yeah.
Although is that the crystal maze?
That's the
I'm thinking
crystal
of?
maze, yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, I'm taking it
absolutely.
right back to the
yeah,
70s.
right back to the very bit. You straight away though, hearing you talk, there's some real resilience. You're talking from a place of resilience. I know we spoke briefly before today, and to share it with everybody else, my notes remind me that you learnt to code at the age of 8.
Mm-hmm.
You had quite a challenging upbringing,
Yeah.
but you've managed to turn it around. What was the driving force that kept you pushing forward? And despite that, and feel free to share those challenges, because it was a challenging environment that you were in growing up.
And before I do that, I probably would put it in the context of work as well, because really, I try and help people through adverse times. And so I wouldn't tell them that from first bit, but I always see what they're going through. And so if you put it in that context, how do you make the best of a situation that you've been thrown? That's it, right? The hand you've been dealt. And get through it. So this year I've been telling people more about this story, more to really understand, and help, because I've always been someone that likes to help. But without the context, it kind of loses half of the impact and things. So very short stories. Unfortunately, I lost my parents at 5. I went into foster care. I uneducated, didn't read or anything, but I lost all of my teeth, rotted away, and it was very painful over a 13-year period. So I became very shy, and but the one thing that came was this computer at the age of 8, and my real brother gave it to me. And it's very important to point out, I started to learn to code at 8. I have no idea how long it took me, but it gave me something to fixate on and really learn and master. And so what that taught me, and it's something that's always driven me, and I don't know when I got this catchphrase, which is you make your own sunshine. Everything was so dark. It was so bad. It was so... I do appreciate that I was given a home by my foster parents, and there are more foster kids, and, it could have been worse. But for me, with those scenarios, it was very challenging, being super shy, what they basically told me every day is that you're very stupid. And as I got... and I think, and there'll be their reasons as well. I'm only giving one half of that story, but the other thing was you should never think for yourself. So those two rules together were kind of weird. And it's kind of odd because I actually operated quite okay outside the home. So I love that, right? And it shows you that you can have a terrible time at work, but you can work it out. And I think I've always had that ethos. And then as I got older into my teenage years, they said to me, you'll never get a job. And I remember being a teenager in bed, listening to them laughing about me, saying, that kid's so stupid, he'll never get a job. And so my esteem was so low.
Yeah.
But I think my pride would never let that sort of show. So I, it was quite crippling without doubt. But I think computers really, really helped me. It gave me something that allowed me to give something of value to the world. And I can see that now. I wouldn't have been able to say that at the age of 8 to 16. And I started to work at the age of 16 at Ford and had an amazing time. I spent 9 years there. So.
One of the parts of the conversations that we had was talking about your smile.
Yeah.
And we had quite a lengthy conversation about this. And just hearing you telling that story on paper sounds so dark, so tough, so emotional, but you sat here today smiling and kind of, in a way, is it fair to say, a bit dismissive of that in some senses?
Maybe that could be my thing. But I'll give you how dark that was, how painful it was, that in parts of my mouth, it was so painful. I used to use a compass and push it into the nerves of my teeth, which would create so much pain, it would numb it. It was this really weird thing that I worked out because I was in pain every single day. So I think it's the reason why I smile a lot, because I know what it's like not to. And so why not enjoy life, I can't look back, and so that's what I want to help people do, really. So
I'll share the story that we ended up talking about when we were chatting. Was I spoke very openly about what I've done on episode 1. If you've not heard it, go back to episode 1, start again, work your way through the podcast. I apologise to the many podcasts that have gone before this, but listen to them all. But I spoke very openly about me and my life when I had Bell's palsy at the age of 18, and the only way that I could deal with life moving forward, because my smile altered and I didn't, I was one of the few people that didn't fully recover, was to stop smiling. And I didn't smile for 2 decades. Yeah. So we said this would be quite an ironic episode. That now I consciously tried to smile, and it's a real difficult thing for me to do. And you said to me, I smile too much.
Yes.
And I can see that already. This real dark story that you've just spoken about. You now, I think one of the things you said to me is you now consciously have to try to not smile.
No, I have to do it for my job, right? Because I realized that's the beauty of Zoom and things, is that whilst I'm interviewing management teams, CEOs, whoever, I mean, smiling doesn't really help. It gives you no gravitas, and it's not really about my gravitas. It's really helping them get the most of this. So if you've got some guy just say, hey, you know, what about this about your business? You know, it's a bit jovial when it's a very serious thing. So you're spot on. We've both got something around the smile piece, and having to consciously either turn it off or on is quite an odd thing. And maybe not odd, but it's an unusual skill, and it teaches you what you can do in society, really.
And wear that mask as well, and,
Yeah.
and do that. I've noted in my mind as you were talking that we're talking positively about buying and selling businesses.
Yeah.
Of course, not always is that the case. When people are having to sell, forced to sell a business,
Yeah.
when it's going through potential liquidation, they have to do these things.
Sure.
Somebody sitting there smiling at them all happy
Yeah.
is not what they want to receive. So
No.
I think it's that emotional intelligence as well,
Yeah.
isn't it, that we have to have, but a real challenge.
Yes.
But in so many ways, I feel like I've got to know you on so many levels. I almost want to say, don't get rid of your smile, because it makes you so you. And I really enjoy. I smiled when I saw you walk through the door today because I went, oh yes, Hutton's here, and oh great, it'll be great to see him. And that is so warm in what you do, but I absolutely appreciate, I very much talk about smiling at the right time and the right moment.
Yeah.
And nobody wants smiling when we're giving bad news, but maybe that's you. Maybe
well,
you're the
that's
smiling
interesting, because I mean, I wake up every single day, and my number one mission at 9. Well, I do 2 things at either end of the day. One of them I did as a kid. I've always done it since. Is think of something happy before you go to bed. If you do that, I just go to bed like that. I just sleep through. So when my wife sort of brings up there's this thing that happened, or the dog didn't go out, or whatever. I mean, not the dog would have to go out if it didn't go out. But I think if you finish your day happy, it's good. I've always done that since I was very young. And my little addiction in the morning is I want to make my team laugh. I mean, but giggle laugh, right? So fine, right? We've got work all the time. That's never, ever going to end. There's always going to be things. So I don't want an inauthentic, oh, you're doing great or whatever. I will come in with something really stupid that I've done, or I've noticed something, you know, and just if I can get them giggling, that is a good start to the day.
That's good. That's a really good tip there as well. I remember going to a networking or an exhibition, I think it was, that I went to years ago, and there was 2 ladies, and they were called the LOL ladies. I need to go and find them and see if they are still around and doing what they're doing. And there was so much that there was in therapy about laughing and smiling. And I've noticed on real difficult days when I smile, as much as I struggle to smile with the physical side of smiling and emotional, there's some days as we do, but physically for me, when I do smile, I start to feel so much better. Yeah. And they started to say, and I'm not going to make us do it now, but I feel like I need to do a whole session on this now, is that we start saying ha, and then we start going ha ha, and we try and say as many ha as we can, and then we burst into ha ha ha, and then we just, it's amazing therapy to do. I'd absolutely encourage anybody to try and go out there and do that. It does make a difference to us.
And I also think there's so much to talk about. There's something as we get older where we've seen so much and we have higher standards and we become quite critical. And you've got a choice. You either, see something and it goes on the list of critical things, a bit like that Inside Out film. You just start to throw a ball in of criticism, or you go, you know what? When you're younger, you wouldn't have cared about that thing. How can you keep that? Because keeping young is also a really important part of being happy. So I would say that whilst I talk to you about not smiling during those sessions, that is the only time I don't do it. And it is quite extremely the other way with my team.
Absolutely. And I wanted to ask you about being a leader, but then I remembered you were a really young leader. Remind me of the age at Ford. You started as a career in Ford.
So I started at 16 and it was brilliant. My first business trip abroad was 18. I just got to see from this very dark, small home to suddenly the world, and the world was light, and you saw all these people. And probably in my early 20s onwards, I don't know the specific age, but I started to have teams and had an office in the States, and everyone that reported into me was probably my age now, so they were double my age. And even then, I remember taking all of my direct reports to a hip hop nightclub in Detroit, and getting them to dance. And that to me was like the best thing ever, because they were old. And
thanks. I think we're about the same age.
I think it was great. And it was a pretty cool job. The company had its own jets and planes and things, flew to work all the time. And it was really good. But it was very serious as well. It was a lot to do.
It must have been quite a shock as a transition for you to get into a leadership role at such a young age. How did that feel for you, or was it a gradual?
No. I'll be honest. It didn't feel like a leadership role. I didn't feel like a leader. I couldn't say I didn't own that sort of management role at all, and I was just kind of just 1 inch away from what I was doing before. I just happened to be very close to the people who worked with me. And I still say work with, not for. And I don't, so I had a pretty cool job. They offered lots of different things, pay for an MBA and all those things. And that's when your real fears coming, like, I shouldn't be doing that. I mean, the kid with no qualifications at all, going straight to an MBA. But that, it showed how supportive that company was. And, there were so many good things there.
It sounds amazing to just have that opportunity, and so many people do now. I'm a big believer of like apprenticeships and getting into those environments and being seen by the right people. So being in the right place at the right time, that's the other thing there as well. It's phenomenal that you were able to get into that. And you've just hinted about that self-worth for you as well, because of course you had this low self-worth that was impacted from that early life that you've had, and well into your career by the sounds of it as well. What did you do? What do you think caused it to linger for so long? And what did you do to eventually confront that self-worth? Because I can really hear this. I'm now just breezing through it and enjoying the world of Ford.
I think it's always going to be there. And and my business partner, he'll say, like, I'm introvert as well as I'm extrovert by nature. I need a lot of time on my own to recover and things. I like to make things, and I think that comes from that childhood. So, in all honesty, things will matter to me. I think you can be the sort of person who thinks the world is the problem or you're the problem. I'm always one of those people, and I don't think I'll ever change that. It's just that I'm more cooler with how I deal with it, rather than it's not. It didn't go away. So
you've got your coping mechanisms along the way, like you say, making people laugh.
Yeah.
How do you talk to yourself on those darkest of days? What techniques do you use? What stories do you tell yourself to pull you out of those difficult days?
It's interesting. So I journal is something that I find really helpful, and I really feel it when I don't. And I journal really fast. It's sort of get it out and do it. So, but if it's dark, I think, to be honest, it is genuinely just talk to somebody, and one of the problems with low self-worth as a leader is you're not a great leader, right? I mean, that in my case, I can put my hand up, and for a long time I wasn't, because I couldn't confront things because they were as confronting as my foster care. And if you look at what I did, I had a bad situation over here, so I escaped it by doing something elsewhere, building code, going out with friends, doing things. But I never, as a child, you wouldn't be able to deal with that and fix it, right? So then as a leader, if you have some kind of conflict or underperformer or whatever, maybe even, it's never really happened, but a customer under whatever, you've got to go straight in. So my quick answer to that, and I do have this silly operating system called TIE in my head. I run the whole business through it. So we have the usual mission and values. We've even got 20 maxims, all these cool things that we can present. But at the core of the business is this acronym of TIE, which is truth, immediacy, and efficacy, right? So everything that comes up, if you hit a problem, is it TIE, right? Have I hit all of those three things? And what you'll find is you do have conflicts as a leader. And one of those three things, hasn't been happened. I've had one thing this year and it's actually embarrassing where I haven't got back to somebody for something because things changed and I've got back to them, but it took me an inordinate amount of time, and it's the only thing that's been hanging, for a long period. And I thought, well, when you put down that acronym, it wasn't truthful because I didn't tell them. It wasn't immediate, and it wasn't it wasn't efficient. So, I lost. So that's it. That's what I go to really.
And there's that so much strength that comes through from picking up that phone eventually and being honest and truthful and saying, I've messed up.
Yeah.
And being vulnerable and what's that phrase of always wearing your heart on your sleeve, going, this has happened.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I've messed up, owning all my mistakes.
Yeah.
And working with somebody. And I think you build so much more respect that way as well. So whilst you might have that low self-worth, when it happens, when it occurs, you're probably going into that panicked. But I wonder how often the people come back to you and go, thanks for your honesty. Look, we all do it.
Yeah.
Probably every time.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I'm sure you see it the same. So it's an extreme case on actually something quite minor. It's not delivery. It's not whatever. But that's a good example there where I'll say take something quite small and it's blown out of proportion, and actually everything's quite going very well. So
what would you say to those leaders that need to push through, that are trying to push through, like you said, and push through the stress without realising the toll that's actually happening on them physically? Because
well, I would actually say it's interesting you use the word push, right? Because that's the most common, in my opinion. Looks like that's the issue, is we think we can outwork it and outwit something and we can push through, and if only we push through, we'll get through. It's sort of like I actually think you have to go the other way, and take some. You can call it time out, do whatever it is, do something that defuses it. Because I do coach CEOs, and I always pick up if they're unhappy, and they basically tell me, right? And it's so crazy how many aren't. They're not happy. They've had the investment, pressure's really high now. They've it's got even higher and things like that. So if I could make a new business, I would create a retreat for execs, that isn't business related, and just get away from it all. It's
no pressure to go to a room, just literally some time out, I guess.
Yeah,
time out retreat, is that the
the real reason was because I noticed that when they get the money, they tend to spend it really quickly on bad things. So I thought, just a protection retreat where you can't screw up the business by changing it radically and do that. But yeah.
So many people feel as though if they do walk away, though, it's walking away from a kitchen on fire, if that's the right terminology.
Yeah.
And I think from my experience, certainly when things are getting really stressful and we're trying to push, I use that word again, push ourselves through that, we can quickly burn ourselves out.
Yeah.
There's a pudding there somewhere, but we do, the kitchen's on fire, we do burn ourselves out, but the business burns at the same time.
But the other thing is really about identity, and so if people are unhappy, it's because, and I saw this for a period, you've lost the things that you really enjoyed. You've put because not only is your kitchen on fire, it's the only place you're hanging out.
Yeah.
Right. And so there is, and so all of the things that sort of common sense, that you've got to have a balanced sort of interests and meet people that are different. And we're here in London, where London, you can meet so many different people in the same day. Why do you have to spend your whole day with your business every day? It's pretty dull. Right. I mean, it's but when you mix things up, you'll find and you'll cross-pollinate from different networks of people, and you'll learn from different people, and then you can sort of bring them across.
And I guess you see that similarity when you're talking to those people to say, yeah, you're having a bad day too. Your kitchen might be on fire.
Yeah.
Or it looks like the smoke alarm's going, trying to extend this analogy even further.
Yeah.
But the smoke alarm might start to go off shortly, and you need to do this because I've seen the worst side of it. And then you can start supporting each other just by having those open conversations. And I think there's so much value that comes from that. I feel as though there needs to be more honesty in the world of leadership. When people are selling their businesses, do you quite often see people holding back with that honesty though? You talked about you try to spot it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there can be. It depends on each team, but you know, I mean, if they're quite open as a culture and things, you'll see it. Some people just don't even get past the first interview. That's quite common, and you're like, no, it's not going to work, because if they're not talking to me, I can tell you, investor, it's just not going to work, because you're not going to be able to bring them into your team, right? So we can stop here or we can carry on, up to you. Generally, they'll stop there. I mean, in my experience, with us, I mean, they may do other things, but so I think also, you know, and I think that's a big theme from, say, my upbringing, is this is all about psychological safety. So if you've got a CEO selling their business and you've got 4 managers who really know what's going on, and you know, and one, you know, how can you all represent the same business? So if the culture of the business is genuinely collaborative and they are genuinely a C-suite, that's fantastic. But we do often meet, there is a really good CEO, but he's actually got all of the roles and everyone's in seat, but they're not actually really empowered to do their job.
Yeah.
So they're not empowered to tell you things either in the sessions. We pick up all of that.
And it's so difficult, isn't it? Having been there myself when I was at my worst of depression,
Yeah.
My life, and you talked about it a moment ago, my life was the business. That kitchen that we talk about was on fire, and I just didn't know that there was any other rooms in the house. You know, it was so hard. And you're right, going to find those connections, going to talk to people, delegating things, and having that strength to trust. And there was a famous politician once that said, if it's more than 50% okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
And it is going out there and just delegating, empowering others, building some boundaries around work. And that must be so much that, well, okay, let's get into the crux of M&A. I know if I'd looked at buying a business and that owner, everything about that business was that owner. Yeah. It wasn't worth as much as they wanted for it, or as much as we would like to have had it for. You know, it's a bit like bonuses. I always say, I want to pay everybody a bonus because that means we've done really well. I want to pay a good price for a business because we're buying a good business. Yeah. But if the owner is wearing every hat, even if they've got an operations director and they're doing all the operations, what is the point? Yeah. And it's so that's a really interesting thing. So I study transactional analysis, a arm of psychology. We push ourselves out to the investor world as a tech business run by psychologists. So as we assess things, and so there's something quite well known is the drama triangle and rescuing. And what I find is most CEOs on that triangle is the rescuer. You know, they don't give time to that person. And yes, they will have that gut feel that this documentation's wrong, and then they spend the whole night reading it, you know. But you could leave it for your ops director, who's probably going to take a week to read it, you know. And but I do think there's a simple way to address this, which is or spot it. And I will ask it, and I have no issue giving that out. Is kind of first things I will look at is, can I have a look at your calendar? All right, and do you have any hobbies? So they're the 2 questions. They map together, right? If you haven't, right, either on tech leaders, they tend to have nothing on their calendar, so that's unorganized. But CEOs will have so much on there, but nothing but work. Yes. So that gives you an indicator, and then some won't have any interest, you know, and then they'll say, well, I haven't got any interest, but I used to before I had a business. Yeah. Well, I think and we, you know, because if you're authentically you, your team will notice it. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to lighten the mood a little bit. I'm just going to ask you some quick fire questions if I can do. Nothing too hard. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. So if you can answer the first thing that comes to mind, that will be great. So no cheating. Okay. So early bird or night owl?
Early bird for sure.
Why? Are you a guy that gets up in the morning? Yeah, you said earlier, like smiling.
The whole house is so annoyingly like this because it's like, yay, you know. And before we had our first child, we were so worried that that the child would be a late bird, because we get up we're like up, and if we had like someone who's a bit slouchy and needs the coffee, obviously not as a baby, but so we're happy that it's just up and out and doing things.
I'm absolutely not that person.
I got that before, yeah.
I'll never come and rent a room off you or anything like that. I am I'm a night owl more than anything. Yeah. Sometimes I'm whatever the difference is, the mid owl, midday owl. What's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Oh, that's a good one. I know the worst one, which I can't say on here.
Okay, so that was my next question. No.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, that's really hard. I mean, I think whether I received it directly or something, it was a big lesson, is listen.
It's huge, hugely important. And you can learn so much from listening. So many different dimensions to listening, isn't there? So it's something I've got better at over time, I've got to say. But certainly in the world that you're in now, those tech entrepreneurs that are selling, buying, whatever it might be, family, friend, I'm sure there's lots that you can learn along the way. So
yeah, I think it's around your team and family and what have you. I think if you've had some kind of trauma, you might have hidden anxiety. That was the thing that's the real thing that went. Right, when that went, that was amazing, and I didn't even know I had it. And so hidden anxiety, and then you just, you want to talk all the time, and so you never give time to other people, and I was very prone to that.
I'm going to ask you a last easy one on this one. I've got lots of long list, but time is flying by. What's one word that best describes you, and that somebody else would use and not you? So what one word would other people use to describe you?
In a positive way, ridiculous. That's
okay.
No, ridiculous, because I remember being with friends, and we were drawing up a map or something years ago, and they said, well, we would do this or that, and but Hutton's plan would be so ridiculously a misadventure, really. That's the thing.
I love it.
So.
Yeah, fantastic. Hutton, as you look back, there's one lesson. What's one lesson that has been most valuable to you personally or professionally? You've been through so much, and you've shared so much with us today.
I mean, it genuinely it's my motto. I've got two things really, which is you make your own sunshine, right? And I guess the absolute thing that underpins that is that courage is better than capability.
I like that.
So it doesn't matter what you can do. You've just got to jump in.
You've got to be courageous.
Yeah.
Be that line of the Wizard of Oz and be courageous.
Yes.
Go out there and do it. Fantastic. What's next for you then? So I quickly, like I say, we've run out of time. So where can we find you? What's going on? Tell us what the future looks like for Hutton Henry.
Well, I've got a nice balanced life. I got back into electronic music and screenwriting. They were my two things before I started the business. So I lost my authentic self when I started the business, and that's why I smile so much now. It's like, oh my gosh, I've got all three now, which is great. So I think where you can find me is on Linktree, Hutton Henry. That's that question. But I think generally lots going. I actually have to take a slight step away from the business to let the others scale it now, because I'm a creative, and the more time I'll spend in it, the more I'll break it. So it's now scaling the company and helping more people. My personal thing, I've got involved with a charity called Become, and they help foster children, and there's a very sort of vulnerable time for them from 16 to 18. You get booted out of care, and so that was a very scary period for me. I was so lucky, right? So lucky. So I do have a lot of empathy for children there, and I'd like to do some speaking things, and I'm looking to raise like a sort of some money for them through a group of companies. So that would be quite cool.
Well, you're very welcome into the speaker world. If you come and join me at the Professional Speaking Association, there's a really amazing network in London that I know. Beth, Kate, there's so many people down here as well that I need to come, and I've been invited down. I need to come, so maybe we'll go
Definitely
along
do
and
it,
take it as
yeah,
a guest. So
yeah.
thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I say that to everybody. I feel like Bruce Forsyth. Everyone's my favourite. But I genuinely have really enjoyed our story. It's felt really personable to me and my own journey with my smile, and just
Yeah.
hearing the positivity that you inject from the difficult situation that you were in was great. So
Well, thank you, and keep smiling.
thank you.
And it's great that you're doing this to help leaders, and you helping leaders help lots of other people, don't you? Really? So.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will say, anybody that's watching, anyone that's listening, I've started to remind people of this now because I don't say it too often. If you want to be in this chair, you want to come and see us in London or another exotic destination paid for by you, then please drop us an email. So hello@leadersindisguise.com, hello@leadersindisguise.com. And yeah, it'd be great to get your feedback, your comments, things that we can do differently. Absolutely, this show is about the leaders, and just hearing your story, we need to be telling these more. So yeah, please drop us an email, and yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you next time. So stay well, look after yourself. Thank you.